Good morning. Is it still morning? Yeah, it is. Sorry. I flew in this morning. My name is Michaela Miller. I'm a National Board Certified Teacher. I live in Washington State and get to work for the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. So I flew in very early this morning, up at 3:45. So I am wide awake. I think I'm taking caffeine intravenously right now. Welcome to the session. We have a group of districts here today to talk a little bit about how to embed National Board Certification into your own professional learning system. And I'm going to, my job is to welcome you. I'm going to speak a little bit later, but what I'd like to do is have each of the districts stand up and each of the organizations or districts stand up and say their name and what their position is for you, so that you can kind of get a sense of who's going to be in the room and speaking with you today. So why don't we go ahead and start in the order that we have on there. Fresno.
I'm Tiffany Castillo, and I'm a teacher on special assignment for coordinating the National Board Certification in my district.
Good morning. My name is Teresa Morales-Young. I'm the Administrator of Teacher Development for Fresno Unified.
And then we have Oakland.
Good morning, Rochelle Rogers-Ard. I am the Director of Leadership Development and Employee Engagement in the Office of the Superintendent for Oakland Unified School District.
My name is Sarah Saldana from San Francisco. I'm also a teacher on special assignment and a co-coordinator for our National Board Support Program in the district.
And a National Board Certified Teacher. And we have two organizations that are here supporting us. I also wanted to mention that LAUSD folks are wanted to be with us today. A lot of the programs that you're going to hear about today are just starting the journey of how do you embed National Board Certification into your professional learning system. LAUSD has been doing this for a long time. You're going to hear a little bit later about their program. Michael De La Torre is the director of that program, and so we wanted to really start today with talking about how do you do this from the ground up? What do you do first? What are your first steps? And with us today, we have two organizations in addition to the district, CTA and Stanford, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Linda Bald, a National Board Certified Teacher, and I'm the director of the National Board Resource Center, which was created by Linda Darling Hammond in her living room in 1998.
And look where she ended up. Who knew?
There we go.
Good morning. I'm Jane Robb. I work for the California Teachers Association in the Department for Instruction and Professional Development. So I'm going to start us off today, and we really wanted to just start off doing a couple of things and asking, we're going to give you a little quiz, because even though assessment is changing in California, we will never give up our quizzes. So here's our first question. When we think about the workforce that we have, right, we're talking about California's workforce. What is the estimated percentage increase in new hires between 2011-12 and 2015-16? Talk to somebody next to you at the table, introduce yourself, and figure out what you think the answer is. You have about 30 seconds. Okay, who thinks they know the answer? How many of you think it's A? 36%. How many of you think it's B? 52%. How many of you think it's C? 67%. Okay, the answer is 52%. This is the estimate. Oh, look at, they're all cheering in the back, cheering in the back. We've had about a 52% increase in new hires in our state. Okay, so what does that actually look like? In June of 2013, there were about 5,000 jobs listed on EdJoin for California certificated personnel. 2 years later, it was almost double that. There were 9,800 jobs that were searching for applicants, okay? Okay, what about when we think of who's coming into the workforce, what's the estimated percentage decrease in enrollment in teacher preparation between 2009-10 and 2013-14? How much have our enrollment declined in teacher prep? Have that quick conversation again. The people who were right last time are getting this like competitive look in their eyes. They're hungry. Okay, how many of you think it's 18? A. No A's. How many of you think it's B? Couple B's. How many of you think it's C? Most C. It is. We have had pretty much a halving. We have cut our potential teachers in half in terms of people coming out. So what this graph shows you, and some of you may have seen this recently, is the dotted line is the estimated new hires starting in 2001, so for about 15 years. And you can see the dip during the recession in 2010-11. And then the red line are total new credentials in California. What you're seeing is those lines crossed in about 2014. We now have more hires than we have potential people to fill them. Okay, last one. If recruitment and retention is so important to us, what is the most common reason teachers give for leaving the profession? It's either lack of opportunity to collaborate, inadequate support systems, or absence of professional respect and autonomy. 30 seconds, figure out if it's A, B, or C. Okay, I heard it is a trick question. It is all of the above, okay? So you all win. Everybody got this one right. But this is, I don't know if you've seen this, this was widely circulated on social media 2 or 3 months ago. Some of Richard Ingersoll's work, who spent basically his career looking at retention and recruitment, but primarily retention. The large bar, the 48% of teachers who leave because of dissatisfaction. They don't leave because of retirement, which is the smallest bar. They don't leave because of school staffing actions, reductions in force, or to pursue other jobs. They leave because they're dissatisfied. And those are the top 3 reasons they are dissatisfied. So what we're going to do right now is kind of hopefully talk to you about why this time is the right time to think about National Board as a strategy in your development continuum for teachers, including teacher recruitment. So right now, we know as districts we have more flexibility under LCFF to establish continuums that meet local needs. We know that National Board really has a long record that you're going to be hearing about more that has an impact on student learning and helps to close the achievement gap, which I'm sure in every single one of your districts is a goal. And we know that teacher leadership or teacher retention is improved when teachers have the ability to take leadership in their schools and districts. So, Michaela is going to talk to you a little bit about some of those things.
All right. So when you walked in, you had several handouts, and I just wanted to go through them really quickly for you and have you pull out the one that I'd like you to use, actually, over the course of this session. And it's just a tool, note-taking tool for you to kind of think about your own system as you're listening to the 3 districts that are here today. And we'll talk a little bit about LA Unified as well. But one of the pieces is that this isn't just about National Board certification. This is about your whole continuum and how you can think about how teachers are entering the profession in your district, how you're retaining them, and then how you're growing to teacher leadership. So, and National Board is a piece of that, is a slice of that, but it is not the whole professional learning system. So as we're going through this process, be thinking about what you hear from the elements of the districts that are going to speak to you today, but also reflect on where are the successes and where are the gaps within your own system. As you think about your mentor and induction programs, how are you recruiting teachers? How are you helping them grow as professionals? And then as you look at teacher leadership opportunities, what is that? What are those pathways? And how can National Board Certification be the stepping stone to those pathways? And you can see at the end of that, spreading your instructional expertise, there are several different pieces there, but we left one blank on this continuum because in every district, there are different opportunities for teacher leadership. And so whether it be instructional coaching, principalship, there are lots of opportunities. And so how can you use that as a leverage to establishing not just your principal as the leader for instruction, but spreading that instructional opportunity and leadership. So we're going to use that template today to think about how various organizations, the districts, Stanford, CTA, how you can think about National Board Certification as being a piece of this big puzzle. It is not the only thing, but it can be an important leverage as you look at growing and retaining. We have a really hard dichotomy here, right? We have a teacher shortage on the one hand, where we're saying, can you breathe? Are you breathing? Can you be a teacher, right? On that end. We just don't even have enough position. We don't have enough people to fill the positions. And then at the other end, we're saying, yes, but you need to be this emblem of what it means to be an outstanding and accomplished teacher. And so we have this dichotomy right now, and we have an opportunity to think about what our systems, what our professional learning systems really need to be for the people that are going to take on going into the teaching profession. And like Linda said earlier this morning, we have the opportunity to shape that. We have an opportunity, I think, that I have never, haven't had in the past. I worked at the State Department in Washington State for 7 years, and so I lived through our getting the waiver and losing the waiver, which is a badge of honor, I think, now, losing the waiver. And so I saw what it looked like from the state perspective for 7 years, working on that, working on how do we create those kinds of learning systems. And I worked inside of a system that used National Board Certification as one of those pieces of the puzzle as we think about building our system. You're going to analyze your own strengths and then consider how National Board can fit into your own world. So Jane mentioned the research, and National Board Certification is one of the most researched reforms, I guess if you want to call it that, something that's been around for 30 years. Over the last 30 years has been researched and researched and researched. And in fact, just this last year in my home state, there was yet another study done from Goldhaber and Cohen that, and both of these, I put both of these on the screen just so that because both of them have really the same outcomes. And that is students taught by National Board Certified teachers show an increase in their outcomes and their learning, period. And that's been shown in almost every study around National Board Certification. Talked a little bit about the continuum. This is an opportunity, I think, for districts and folks that are leading the work in districts to shape your own professional learning system for teachers. California is one of the only states that I work with that really has this clean slate to kind of shape what it's going to look like, and that's pretty exciting, especially with funding to go with it. So as you think about this continuum, one of the pieces that I think really sticks out to me is when you develop this cadre of National Board Certified teachers, as teachers move through the process, how are they giving back to the profession? How are they impacting not just student learning, but adult learning within your own system, but then elsewhere? So how are they used in turn with pre-service? How are they then used in your induction program? And then finally, how are they helping other teachers go through board certification? So there are opportunities as you grow this cadre. All of National Board Certification rests on 5 core propositions. All 25 certificate areas really come out of the 5 core props. There are systems all over the country that have used the 5 core props as the basis for their professional learning system, but also evaluation pieces and other things. Because at the core, really, when I have anybody look over these 5 core propositions, they say, that is what I want teachers to know and be able to do.
Thanks, Michaela. So, good morning again. I wanted to just chat with you a little bit about what is the National Board Resource Center, and how many of you guys already know what National Board Certification entails? How many people don't know much at all? Okay, perfect. Then that's what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so here is a picture of one of our sessions. And so the National Board Resource Center is a place where teachers can come and get support to go through the process of board certification. But what's happening now, as you will soon hear, is with local districts' ability to create their own programs, it's actually better to work within the district, to build your own program of support and analysis of your practice within the district context. And so we are now going out and acting as a resource to districts to help them implement, set that up. So what is National Board Certification? It's a performance-based assessment for teachers created by teachers. It's rigorous, demanding, very collaborative, and strong emphasis on reflecting. In fact, that's one of the things that stays with you forever. You're always reflecting on your practice. Why did I put these kids together? How do I know that the students are learning? And it's an evidence-based process in which teachers show their levels of accomplished teaching. So it isn't a dinging, it's a positive. And it already integrates and is aligned with the new California standards, because it's accomplished teaching. And that's one of the things that we like about the new standards, is that it reflects accomplished teaching instead of test-taking strategies on multiple choice tests. So these are the 4 components, and I wanted to just say that this PowerPoint and a selection of resource materials will be available on the digital chalkboard for you. And if for some reason it doesn't appear, just send us an email and we'll send you all of these things. We have a bunch of different handouts that reflect the process that you might want to share with people back at your district and things like that. So there's 4 components. Component 1, I just so love using this little laser pointer. Component 1 is a content test experience, lovely 3.5-hour test at a Pearson testing site. But a part of being an accomplished teacher is being a content expert, or very knowledgeable about either the content, or in my case, as an elementary teacher, the pedagogy. And then there are 2 components, component 2 and 3, where teachers use student work and video analysis of their work, and they reflect on their instructional decisions and the student growth over time. And then component 4 is they show how they are as a leader in their context, as a learner, and how they are reaching out and working with family. And there will be an element, we think, of how does you use data to inform your instruction. So we say because it's being revised and it will be released next year. So candidate support is a critical component, in my opinion, of the professional development aspect of board certification. It is, many teachers who've gone through it will say that and certainly it was true for me, it was a game changer for me as a teacher. It made me significantly more effective. And Linda was talking about how teachers do better when they collaborate over time. And that's basically what this process is. It's collaboration over time with high standards. So it's like the perfect vehicle to make yourself a better teacher. And when you get a chance to collaborate with other amazing teachers and get their ideas, great things happen. So we offer a on-ground, face-to-face model where we meet about 10 times a year. And we also have an online session. We have also all of our support is available through Canvas, which is an online thing. So what that means to you guys, say you're in another district far away, you could connect your program through the Canvas and use that to support your candidates. You don't have to physically come to Stanford. And so we also have got a teleconferencing ability, so we can connect remotely like we're doing with Fresno.
So first of all, I want to state a public thank you to the three organizations that were introduced in the beginning. I have to say a huge thank you to Michaela and to Linda and to Jane for including us in this presentation. And I actually give this thank you not just as a genuine thank you, which it is, but also to let you know that as a district, you would not be alone. And that's really, really, really important to know that you're not alone through this process, that you would have supports in place if this is a program that you want to build your teacher leadership programs to be like. And so in Fresno Unified, we have a population of 74,000 students. We have approximately 4,000 teachers, and it's the fourth largest district in Fresno Unified. And we have been building a teacher continuum over the last 5 years, trying to make that really robust. Of course, there's lots of areas for growth and improvement, but one of the areas that we really wanted to build and strengthen was our teacher leadership opportunities. And so it's just like Michaela mentioned, it's part of a puzzle. It's part of one piece of our program. And so I wanted to share with you our Fresno Unified Teacher Pipeline. And as Michaela was talking, I want you to think about this visual in parallel with what she was speaking to, because this is exactly what she was speaking to. I'll give you a little story. Recently, there is a new freeway built in Fresno. It actually connects one of our cities that is a subset of Fresno. But you can start on that freeway at the very beginning of the path. And so I want you to have a visual of this freeway. You can start at the beginning of that freeway, or you can on-ramp at any point. And so we actually have a pipeline that starts recruiting at the student level. And so students who are interested in being teachers can then join what we call Teacher Academy and enter from the beginning of that freeway with supports all throughout their career. So that's the beginning of the freeway, but there are lots of on-ramping opportunities. So we work directly with our universities to provide support from Fresno Unified in partnership with our universities that are in the local areas. And as they move through that pipeline or continuum, they would have induction support, of course. So again, we think that the most effective way and the most effective teachers that we can turn out start at the beginning, but of course they can on-ramp it at any point. Looks very much like Michaela's visual, even though it has buckets there, it's the same kind of thing. So we support three broad areas of teachers. We have aspiring teachers, which is the preparation programs that I just spoke of. We have induction or new teacher supports. And then we also think about, of course, our experienced teachers. How do we grow and develop them? So if we were to actually develop this out even further as one large piece of paper, it would look like this, because this would be added to it. It looks very similar. It's our leadership pipeline. And we know that we have teachers in our system that might want to go into formal leadership like administration, but we really had this large pocket of teachers that wanted to not go into administration. They wanted to stay in the classroom and develop and grow as professionals within the classroom. And that was a gap that Fresno Unified had, and we really wanted to be relentless about going after how we approached it. And so, yes, we do have lots of teacher leadership opportunities through instructional coaching and mentoring. A lot of those opportunities, though, you step out of the classroom. So we knew with National Board, this really aligned to our vision, and it supported those that wanted to remain in the classroom. And then, of course, they could move into formal leadership, as you see, administration, and as Michaela spoke to at the beginning. So we have various opportunities for teacher leadership, both informal and formal. So what I want to start by saying is we had to make sure that we had a very, very solid vision for where we were moving. And we needed to have support from our district leadership, our board, our superintendent, and our cabinet level members. We have some very robust policies around professional learning, and there's just a couple quotes there about engaging in continuous learning no matter where you are in our system, if you're a classified employee, or if you're a teacher in our system, or if you're an administrator. And so there are policies to help support what we are doing with National Board. The second thing is you have to have a champion for this work. And so that's what we did next, is we hired a really great teacher on special assignment who has been working boots on the ground, right? All of the details for National Board. And so Tiffany Castillo is our Fresno Unified National Board champion. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
So if you're anything like me, and this work is brand new, and I can tell by the number of hands that were raised when they asked, hey, how many of you know anything about National Board? That's how I felt when they said, you know, we need a teacher on special assignment that wants to coordinate this program. I knew nothing. So I don't know if that can help you kind of think, like, if you didn't know anything before you came in here, you're not alone. I as well did not. And I was like, what am I getting myself into right now? And I'm not nationally board certified, so how am I going to help anybody? And if you feel that way, welcome to the club. But what I will say is that I started looking out there in the systems, you know, at other school districts, and started kind of doing some just Google searches of like national board support programs, and ta-da, Linda's program popped up at Stanford, and I thought, well, I better get myself over there. And so I went over there right away, and I can tell you that the level of support that just started pouring in. I met Linda, and then and you'll meet Sarah, and they started introducing me to other people, and then I met Jane, and then she's with CTA, so then she helped me, you know, in my local union reach out, and I said, well, I've got all these people who are gonna join this cohort, and I'm gonna start recruiting people in to begin this process, and I don't know if I can do it alone. And they were like, you don't need to do it alone. We're going to come alongside you. And then Michaela jumped in with however I can support you. And then between Jane and I and my local union, we got a jumpstart session organized, and we got teachers on the ground moving, embedded into these components. And I want you to know, if you're thinking about doing this, it will fit with the system that you're already, whatever system you have right now, whether you work for a school district or whether you're in the private sector of providing professional learning, I will tell you that there are resources out there and people who have already, like was mentioned earlier, we want to share the knowledge that we have, as was spoken earlier. We don't want to hold on to these things and have this knowledge, but you know, we're not going to give it out to others. No, there's so much support out throughout the state of California, and then other states that will reach out to you that say, we have these programs that are in place. We'll give you whatever resources we have. You need stuff on recruiting? I mean, other districts will say, I have flyers, I have handouts that we've done. It's been so helpful to not be on this path alone, because I felt that pressure. And as we started really looking into, you have a handout that actually has two different graphics that will have this cycle of continuous improvement and the architecture of accomplished teaching. And as we in Fresno Unified started thinking about how will we make sure that this isn't something so new in our system that it would be overwhelming, because teaching is a practice that has a lot of skill sets that you have to have. And we didn't want to be like, and by the way, you're going to have to learn a whole nother set of skills in order to, become nationally board certified. So as we started looking at our system, this was the Fresno Unified system that we already had in place. So we already asked our teachers to do planning, and what does that look like? And then we asked our teachers, how do you set up an implementation plan? And then what would assessment look like for that? And then if you get your results, what will you do with them? And then what have you learned from this experience? And you can see, it just continues. We were pleasantly surprised when we sat down and we started learning about National Board's architecture of accomplished teaching. It was so close to what we were already doing, which was wonderful, which was, who are your students? Where are they? What do they know? We had these systems in place, like, this is us. We have to plan for who are our students? What do they need to know? What do we want them to learn? How will we know if they learned it? We already had all those systems in place, and so we started seeing, set worthy goals. That was part of our implementation plan. That's part of your planning. So as we started seeing our own system, we started being able to recognize that doing these things for National Board was just putting what we already do in our practice into our writing, and that's what the National Board process is. It's taking good teaching practices and putting them into writing. So just as an activity really quick, if you would like to take a second at the tables and kind of talk about what systems do you currently have in place in your I'm not sure which organizations you're with, but if you work for school districts, what do you currently have in place that you might be able to see where this architecture of accomplished teaching already fits in with where you're at in your instructional systems and with whichever organization you work for? So I'll give you a minute or so to talk about that. So I'm going to pull us back together for the sake of time, and there's some other presenters here. So I'm going to have us come back together, but hopefully you got a chance to talk a little bit about it. And if you're anything like our district, we didn't have any nationally board certified, well, we have 2 current nationally board certified teachers in our program, but we really do hope to build that up through this system. And, if you're thinking, I'm not sure, we don't have anyone in our district that knows anything about it to really kind of get it going, neither did we. But our goals now, we just see this growing and blossoming, and we see people being able to move and use this national board and use our teachers once they become certified. We see this like moving into so many different areas of professional learning in our district, and we're really excited about what the future looks like for our district. So I'm going to pass it off right now, and we'll get started in the next one.
Thank you. So I'm Rochelle Rogers-Ard from Oakland Unified, and I was just wondering if you could take a moment and look at this slide, and using the protocol I notice or I wonder, if you could provide a little feedback. Take a moment. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Yes.
Inverse proportionality.
Inverse proportionality of?
White and non-white teachers and students.
Thank you. Anybody else? What do you notice? What do you wonder? Yes.
How do you change that?
I wonder how to change that.
And I wonder why.
And I wonder why.
I wonder how the teacher demographics impacts the student demographics.
Yes. How do the teacher demographics impact the student demographics? Yes.
I wonder if there's districts where it is a match, and if so, how's that changing their student outcomes?
Are there districts where it's a match? And if so, is that changing student outcomes? And having done a lot of research on this over the past 7 years, but focused specifically in California, very few districts where there is a match, because our demographics, our student demographics, are changing and becoming ever more diverse, right? So I am super excited to be the director of the Teach Tomorrow in Oakland program, which is federally funded. It is a program that was designed to recruit and retain local, permanent, diverse teachers. And in Oakland, we are experiencing the exact same thing that we're experiencing across the state. And people are always like, in Oakland? Yes, in Oakland. What, in Oakland? Yes, in Oakland. We are experiencing the very same thing. And so when TTO began, it was about how do we recruit folks who are from our community, who represent and look like the students in our community to teach. And after 8 years of having done this program, we've seen somewhat of a move. But the slide that we showed you earlier that said a few years ago there were like 5,000 job offers and now there are 9,000, I feel like Oakland is responsible for that, because we hire 400 to 450 teachers per year. And so why is that? Mainly because we have created a revolving door of teachers, because we rely on national recruiting partners to staff our schools. And, I need not name them, but, they start with a T and they end with, the first letter of the alphabet. And I'm just saying that when you are relying on national partners to staff your districts, we don't get the opportunity to build the continuum that Fresno and San Francisco is going to discuss, because our teachers leave. So for us, it was about not just how do we recruit, but how do we retain. So for us, I said, we need to recruit people who are from our community, people who are already here, and people who reflect that diversity. Super difficult to leave when you feel like you're going to run into your students at the local Target, right? As opposed to folks who are from out of state who feel like I'm coming here to serve this community for a moment. So we began to work on this program, and as a result, our retention rate was about 73%, 4 out of 5 teachers are remaining in the classroom. But then we started to notice about a couple of years ago, our teachers were feeling that itch. They were feeling like we need to leave, even though we said we were going to be retained. We don't feel like we have leadership opportunities. In Oakland, we were having a problem with career pathways, to be absolutely honest, and other opportunities. So therefore, we started to look at what are some of the activities that we can do to engage our teachers who are remaining in the classroom but not feeling very useful. Super glad that one of those strategies is the National Board certification process. And so how did we decide to use it? I want you to take a ride with me. Picture it, I'm in my office minding my own business. And Linda Ball dials my phone and says, well, first she sent an email, but then we had a phone message and she said, I didn't ignore the email, I sent it to someone else. Now let's be clear, I didn't know who she was. So then we finally got it together. We got on the phone together and she says, I think your teachers can do national board. And I had the same reaction that I've experienced from a lot of people when I talk about national boards. National board is very elite, or so we thought, right? It's for a certain group of people with a certain amount of money to do a certain group of things, right? So how do we change that? And Linda said, we can do pretty much anything you want to do, which, right, that was right up my alley. So I wanted to demystify what national board could be. So one of the things that we did, the first step, I wanted our teachers to be able to meet in Oakland. She said, that's great. So if we're going to have teachers meeting, we can move them as a cohort. I was able to put my hands on a group of teachers who were very much interested in it. Then I said, oh, what about the money, right? Super expensive. She said, no, there's a scholarship. So then talking to district folks around how could they meet that scholarship, how could they help to defray the costs associated with that. But what was really, really key for me, I am building a group of teachers of color who are local. I could not bring in someone from, insert district here to work with them. It had to be someone local and it had to be a teacher of color. And Linda said, we have that too. And then there was nothing else I could do but keep working. So we have 2 nationally board certified teachers of color who are working with our group, who are in Oakland, who are taking this cohort. And I'm super excited about the work because, as Fresno mentioned, sometimes I feel like district leaders have to see it before they'll get behind it. So rather than wait for someone to give me the permission, I just went ahead and moved forward, and now they're on the train with it. So a couple of things that we are doing, just recently having conversations. Now that the pilot group is rolling right on along, we are talking to our union about increasing the stipend that teachers receive after they are certified. We are also having conversations about what would this through line look like that San Francisco is going to talk about from the moment that our teachers get into the classroom through BITSA, right? And keeping that through line the same and making sure that there is alignment between our district goals and our national board goals. But perhaps most importantly, it was so amazing for me to hear some of our teachers re-engage. They're 4th and 5th year teachers, so they've passed that critical 3-year mark. But to re-engage and become teacher leaders at their school sites because of national board certification. And because they're teachers of color, it enables other teachers to see that this is possible, and it enables our students to see what's possible. But finally, it enables our district to say maybe we do need to take some steps to remove barriers so that we can continue to increase the number of teachers of color who are doing excellent work in Oakland. Thank you.
I'd just need about 5 more hands and I'll be good. I'll put this here. Okay. And again, I'm Sarah from San Francisco, and this is can be considered a report from the field, a status report on where we are at with our program. For over 10 years, San Francisco Unified has offered a $5,000 a year stipend to any board certified teacher. It's good for the life of the certificate, so as long as a teacher renews their certification, that continues. And so I wanted to share that up front. That is a major incentive for our teachers. If they cite that as the only reason for pursuing, that usually doesn't work out too well for them, but it is often, I want to grow, I want to improve my practice, I want to collaborate, and that stipend is really great. And when we think of the reason, much like Oakland is losing teachers, we hire about the same number of teachers each year. It's often because we can't afford to live in the city anymore. And so our teachers are leaving after 2, 3, 5 years to go start their families and be somewhere else. So the stipend is a really big part of an incentive and recruit and retention strategy. In the past, over the past several years, San Francisco Unified had between 40 and 60 candidates a year. And we had some supports in the district, but mostly they were sent to Stanford. We recommended people go to Stanford. For myself as an MBCT, I went to Stanford for support, and Linda was my support provider. Thanks to a grant over the last couple years, we have been able to grow our own district support program. And so now we actually have 145 candidates this year, and it's made a huge difference. Many candidates have said, I tried this a few years ago, but I just couldn't follow through with it. It was too hard to travel, it was too expensive, I just didn't feel comfortable, but now that it's here, I can do this. Our support is free. It is local, both obviously in terms of geography, that makes it easier to not have to travel, but also in terms of context. So when we're talking about a certain district initiative or curriculum planning tool or verbiage, those acronyms that every district has, we can use those because we have that local context. We offer a variety of types of supports, and so depending on the teacher's time, personality, preferences for how they like to learn, there are multiple ways for them to get support. And as Linda shared, the process is now, people can be at all different stages in this process over time. And it used to be everybody did it all in 1 year, and now people can do it over time. And so with our local program, we've been able to provide differentiated support. If you're only doing this one part, you can come to just those supports. If you're doing all 3 of these parts, then here are some supports you can access. And because it's local, we've been able to kind of figure that out in a little better way. And when you came in, Tiffany showed you the architecture, and when you came in, you got this handy dandy mouse pad, screen wiper, glasses cleaner, so you'll just never be too far away from the architecture of accomplished teaching. And we refer to this often, and we model this process with our candidates in our program development. So just like in step 1, it's asking where are your students, the teacher is doing that. We as a program are saying where are our candidates, what do they need, what are our next steps to support them. So that's a snapshot of where we are now. Where we are beginning and moving next also mirrors a lot of what you just heard from Fresno and from Oakland. And actually, I want to say one other thing. Time and time again, when we do feedback forms for any of our supports, teachers say, wow, this is so amazing to feel treated like a professional. And I'm thinking about that quiz at the beginning that said professional autonomy and respect are the reasons people leave. They're also the reasons people stay. And many people have reported that it is one of the one of, if not the only, professional learning opportunity they've had where they feel like they are driving it and they're in charge and they feel so respected. And so we don't have data to support yet, how that translates to retention, but anecdotally, it's definitely there. Our next step in our district, we are also developing a career lattice. Much like I really love Fresno's, I'm going to take that back and share it in San Francisco. And our program sits in the same department where BITSA sits, the intern support program, teacher residency program, lesson study, master teacher programs. We're all in the same Office of Professional Learning and Leadership. And many of our teachers are users of all of our programs. And they look at us and they say, this is really great, but don't you guys talk to each other? Because they're calling this, in the master teacher program, they call it this, and you're calling it this, but it's the same thing. And that's just been a really great, we all know that we are great at creating new words for the same thing. And so one of our next step and our vision is that national board thinking, habits of mind, this approach to developing, to planning and instruction just becomes a through line through all of our programs, including when a candidate is doing their PACT or their EdTPA, that then they say, oh, now I'm in BITSA, that's just like, that's connecting back for me there. Oh, national board. Oh, yeah, that's just like what I did in BITSA. And that it's not feeling like it's new puzzles that they're having to put together each time. And our next step is to bring the same thing just to all school-based professional learning. It could be that we want site-based cohorts to actually be pursuing candidacy, but it could be that there are teachers who aren't eligible yet or for whatever reason don't want to be candidates. There's no reason that they should not be engaged with this accomplished teaching and the way accomplished teachers think and approach their work. We also are following step one of the architecture, but we're widening that lens. So who are our teachers? Who are our site leaders, and where are they now, and what do they need to be able to grow? And then finally, we know the mid-career moment when often maybe some teachers have pursued certification already. We have 250 NBCTs in our district, but in the past, NBCTs you certified, and then that was sort of it. Then it went on to the next new candidates. And so a huge part of what we're doing is bringing those national board teachers, certified teachers, back into the fold and saying, actually, that wasn't the end. That was a new beginning for you to then go back and give back and reinvigorate yourself. And they are excited because they loved their certification process and then they sort of lost track of it. And so we're building a network of NBCTs. We're helping. They really want to learn adult facilitation skills. They really want to learn how to develop professional learning for their colleagues and their peers. And so it's not only the professional learning for the candidates, it's for that later part of your career, continuing that learning. And we are asking, who are our teacher leaders? Where are they now? And what do they need? And they're down at the bottom as a foundation because neither of those other two boxes can happen if we don't have those teacher leaders leading the way. So that's our snapshot of San Francisco, and I'll pass it over to Jane.
So you may be asking yourself, so why is CTA in this room, right? How do we fit into this whole support network of teacher development? And I think it's often overlooked, and so I wanted to share with you, I didn't make this up, this is actually comes out of CTA's strategic plan document. CTA has a long-standing commitment, not surprising to anybody in this room, to leadership development. And one of the things that I do think is overlooked is how we define what leaders are in our organization. And you'll see there, it says leadership includes CTA members who serve as instructional leaders, promote initiatives to advance education reform, and devise strategies to transform our profession. Supporting this work is central to what constitutes leadership within the California Teachers Association. And so we have a huge investment in developing leaders. And what I wanted to bring to your attention, I don't know if you all are familiar with the teacher leadership competencies. How many of you have seen it? That's the cover of it, okay? The teacher leadership competencies were developed as a joint effort between the National Board on the national level, the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, the National Education Association, CTA's national affiliate, and the Center for Teaching Quality. And what those three organizations sat down to do about 3 years ago is define what are teacher leaders? What skills do they need? What does that look like? And one of the handouts that you picked up is the graphic of what those teacher leadership competencies consist of. So they looked at 3 different areas. One being, what are the actual topical areas in which teacher leaders exist? One being instructional leadership, one being policy leadership, and one being association leadership. They identified a number of overarching competencies that all teacher leaders need, like reflective practice and personal effectiveness and a commitment to continuous learning. So those cross across all areas of teacher leadership, whether it's instructional leadership, policy leadership, or association leadership, and then some very specific skills that are needed in each of those 3 areas. So our investment as an organization is making sure that we have the programs and policies and practices in place to support that. National Board is an important component of that. And so we operate on a couple of levels. We try, as Sarah was talking about, what happens next, right? You get your National Board certification, it's like, I'm all dressed up for the party, where do I go? But when you think about it, there are lots of opportunities for putting a voice, the voice of the teacher, in policy discussions. And so we often look to our National Board teachers to help us in those areas, in instructional decision-making and instructional leadership, and then in association leadership. We are, I don't know, and Michaela, you'll know this, I should never say this, but what we've seen in our sister state in Washington is a large number of their association leaders are nationally board certified teachers.
55 districts.
In 55 districts, their union presidents are nationally board certified teachers.
295 districts.
So about a fifth. Thank you, mathematical wizard, sitting in the corner. So what we're really trying to do is provide the space for that to happen and then ongoing support for National Board, building that leadership as one of the avenues. There are lots of avenues. CTA will never say it's the only way to go, but it is certainly one of the ways that should be offered to teachers if they choose it. So what we do specifically, and isn't this Fresno? I think this is Fresno, a picture of Fresno. It is. I found this picture and I thought, oh, I think that's Fresno. CTA works with our local chapters. If the district and the chapter are interested in collaborating, we have what's called Jumpstart. It's a candidate support program to establish a really strong start for usually cohorts of teachers who decide to pursue National Board certification. And what the Jumpstart is, it's a series of seminars are designed to then provide both information, experience, and practice in beginning to work on your National Board components that Linda described earlier. So it gives them time and opportunity to work with their colleagues in a really supportive and collegial environment. So what we're trying to do is start at the beginning to provide a strong foundation, work with our colleagues around the state. I mean, you know, we all kind of know each other because one of the things we do and how we keep stumbling on each other is we literally get on the phone periodically and we all say, let's get on the phone and talk about what's happening in all these various programs around the state, see how we can help each other. what resources are available, who knows what, and really have a very informal network to do that. Work with our partners to help teachers get certified who want to. And then at the end, CTA tries to provide opportunities for leadership in all those various capacities for teachers who are ready to step into that next role.
Okay, so this is just a little bit for you guys to know. Anybody from the south side of the state? Okay, so LA Unified has the largest and oldest, I think, program in the state. And Michael was not able, he wanted to come, and then they said, well, the registration is overbooked, and so he couldn't. Otherwise, he would have been here. And so he is one of our wonderful colleagues, and he runs the program in LA Unified, which is funded as a partnership between the district and the associations, United Teachers of Los Angeles. And they started in 1997, as it says. I stole his heading and his footer. They started in 1997, and they are the largest creators of National Board Certified Teachers in the state and have a well-developed program. And I wanted you to see this, for those of you guys who are in districts, you want to be very thoughtful about when you develop a stipend in cooperation with your association. We have had some districts who paid for the cost of board certification for their teachers and then didn't offer a stipend. And unfortunately, they were next door to LA Unified. And so they got board certified through their district and then enjoyed a nice 15% salary increase by moving to LA Unified. So you want to be very careful about what supports you put in place so you're not shooting yourself in the foot. So they offer now, and didn't start this way, but now over time, who was it, Tiffany? You shared that Michael shared with you that in the beginning they didn't offer a 15% salary increase, but it has proven to be such a valuable part of their teacher development and their leadership their access to leadership that is now, they enjoy a 15% salary compensation, but what I really like is that it's 7.5% is just for being a board certified teacher. The other 7.5%, you have got to provide 92 hours of service, and there's all sorts of different choices that you can choose as a teacher. So they're developing their teacher leadership, and they're keeping those awesome teachers in LA Unified with a nice salary increase. So now, it's time for you guys to ask some questions. I'm going to pass it to you, Michaela. Any questions at all with what we...
I want to do a quick check for understanding, so I want to make sure I understand the process.
Sure.
So it's a 3-year process. There are 4 components that they take tests or assessments on, and the monthly meetings that they have are to support them
through the
in
process.
that 3-year process to take those 4 tests.
Yeah. So, and let me clarify, it's up to 3 years. So the process, National Board is in the process of revising its assessment system. The standards for National Board have been around for over 20 years, and they are, they're really what everything rests on, the standards. So if you go in and you just explore one content area, set of standards, those are actually revised on a cycle, and that has been in place for a long time. The assessment for candidacy is a thing that's being revised. So the 4 components, in the past, you had to go through the process in 1 year, and you had up to 2 years of retakes. In the new system, you have the 4 components that Linda talked about, and you have up to 3 years to complete all 4 of those components. And you still have 2 years of retakes. Now, we are in a rollout right now. Component 1, Component 2, and Component 3 are all rolled out. Component 4, Linda spoke about, is not yet rolled out. They're piloting, field testing that this year. Starting next year, and time will tell what happens, will teachers take advantage of up to 3 years to take it? Will teachers go back and do it all in 1 year? I mean, I think the flexibility is there, which is great, because some teachers just are not going to take on the full process in 1 year, and that's huge. On the other hand, sometimes teachers don't have complete authority on what they teach from year to year. And so you want to make sure you're in the same content area, the same grade level band when you're going through the process. So, there's a lot of factors that teachers will have to consider as they're thinking about, how do I go through this process? I think all systems, especially the ones that have been in place for a while, like LAUSD, have really had to rethink how you offer support, right? You individualize. It's much more individualized than it was in the past, which I think lends itself to National Board not being seen as this extra thing that I do, and it's this mystery out here, and these teachers go through, and you never really know what they go through, and it's kind of and then you have these board certified teachers, and then you have this obligatory school board meeting where you give them some sort of, honor them in a Costco sheet cake, and then, you send them on your way. But now it's like, and that was my experience actually going through the process. So there you go. I went through the process. I was one of 4. My principal was like, I don't know, she did something, go get a Costco sheet cake. So we celebrated in the library, and that was it. But now it's thinking about, okay, how do I actually think about the professional life of the teachers coming into my system, right? And that National Board is a point. You cannot go through the process until you have 3 years of teaching under your belt. So this is not an induction type of experience. This is for teachers that have completed 3 years of teaching and then start the process. And I would venture to say, Washington isn't unlike a lot of systems around the country in that we have pretty robust systems in place for teachers, or if we had the money, robust systems for teachers in 1, 2, and 3. After that, things start to peter out. And unless you have a system in place where teachers in their 4th, 5th, or 6th year can say, what do I do next? And now districts, I think, are thinking about this and getting on it. And it is a pathway. If you want a solid foundation for developing teacher leadership, there is no better system in place to make sure everybody has the language of instruction than National Board Certification. I really think that is the basis of what do you want teachers to know and be able to do in order to propel them to formal leadership roles or informal leadership roles.
And the one thing I just want to add to what Michaela was saying that I think is really important. We've had this sort of conversation, among educators about do teachers continue to improve in their practice over time? There's this whole thing like, to what extent does experience help teachers? And there's been sort of a urban legend, for lack of a better word, that teachers continue to improve for the first, we can argue, 3 years, 5 years, whatever that is. And then they sort of flatline. Well, actually, and I don't know if Linda Darling-Hammond said this morning, what newer research is showing is that flatline is a function of not quality professional development after year 5, right? And that when we really insert professional development that is of high quality, relevant, and appropriate to mid-career teachers, that their learning and practice continues to improve, maybe not at quite the same rapid rate as a brand new teacher, but significantly over time. And so we have to rethink what we believe professional development or professional learning should look like for mid-career teachers. And I think it's really important for all of us to rethink what that looks like and what are the appropriate avenues and programs that can serve that chunk, because that is the chunk that we have to work with if you want to see the results in your schools.
So, I think we're over. I'm probably hungry.
If there are any more questions.
Oh, 12:45, oh, great.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd love to just get some insight from all of you. I've run into, we're a county office, so we work with districts. I've run into some situations where teachers are looking at holding off on induction and going towards national board, and that's really a district culture, I understand. And I don't know how to feel about that because I don't know enough about national board, but it seems like it might not be setting them up for success. But I'd love to just hear some insights about that so that I can quote someone when I go back and someone else
So
speaks.
I'll kick it off and then I'll let it turn it over because I know what other states and districts are doing around the country with this that have really, and it's something that actually all of the districts alluded to up here, and that is, as I mentioned before, you cannot start national board certification until after you finish your third year of teaching. So you cannot, I mean, that's kind of a piece. Actually, the board of directors reviewed that policy when the assessment was being revised and stuck with the 3 years. This is an advanced certification. This is not something teachers in their first year necessarily go through, or we want them to go through. However, a district like Wake County right now, Wake County, North Carolina, is thinking about how do we back map the standards, the architecture. One of my friends calls it the architecture of teaching. It's not the architecture of accomplished teaching, it's the architecture of teaching. This is what teachers should know and be able to do. How do you back map that to your induction program? So how do you get teachers coming into your system thinking, oh, these are what the professional standards, this is what the standards of my profession, teaching, look like. So that if I'm an English language arts teacher, I'm an ELA, and I look at my standards, national board standards for ELA, from the minute I get into the district on through. So I know what's out there in front of me. I'm not expected to do that. I'm not expected to go through the content knowledge test or the pedagogy tests, the portfolio pieces. I'm not expected to do that until after I hit my third year of teaching, but it's out there in front of me, right? So that's what I'm expected to know and be able to do. So Wake County is actually started this year with their first group of inductees, and they have a huge district. It's actually the largest number of MBCTs in the country per district is in Wake County. So they have a pool of MBCTs already to kind of draw from as you're thinking about candidate support. But what they've done is just drawn it back and said, no, this is going to be the trajectory. This is where we're going to go. And so I think that I have not heard very many, I think there are in some states, as teachers are going through their certification process and certification to keep their teaching license for the state, are weighing different options, right? I have to go through this or that. What's going to get me my certification for the long haul?
So I want to say one other thing, because I get the calls at the end of the process. So just for those of, I get your, let me make sure I understand what you're asking. You're saying teachers are going through an induction program, waiting for because remember, you get a preliminary, you have 5 years to clear your credential. You can clear a credential in California with national board certification, okay? And some out-of-state people come in and do that. But here are the dangers of doing that. First of all, that means your beginning years you have no support. So you may not make it to year 3, okay? The idea that a teacher doesn't get support in the beginning is just a really scary idea, okay? On both from a district policy level and then as an individual new teacher level, right? So if you're the policymaker, that would be something that personally I would discourage as a policy option to take over. As an individual new teacher, I think that leaves you, swimming in the deep end with no help. The second thing is, I can tell you I have gotten many, many calls from teachers who tried to do that and then at the end of the 5 years had not completed the national board certification process. And they were out of luck, okay? And out of time, and it really bollocks them up. Because in some cases, there were, depending, it depends on what happens, but in some cases, they had to go back and basically sort of recertify as a preliminary teacher, getting new whatever new requirements had come in, it was a mess. So it is not a good idea. And I think part of that, probably what is fueling that at this point, is teachers are being asked to pay for induction. She's going like this. You can't see this, but she's going like this. It's money. So when a district is charging $2,000 or $3,000, and San Diego County has a lot of those districts, teachers are saying, should I pay for induction, right? Is this the story? I mean, am I getting this right?
We are the county office and we charge
Okay.
$2,000.
Okay, so they're saying, should I invest my $2,000, right? I'm a new teacher, I'm at the bottom of the salary schedule. I can either pay for an induction program, or I can wait, take a chance, flounder for a few years, pay for national board certification at year 3 or year 4 and 5, hope that I pass and clear it that way. That's what they're doing. I mean, tell them to go to Vegas, they have a better chance. Tell them to buy a Powerball ticket, they have a better chance. But I mean, it really is a pretty risky proposition.
But the solution isn't to go through induction, the solution is to stop charging
Yeah.
teachers who don't make
No.
any money in the first place.
Right.
And we're hiring and we'll pay for their induction.
There you go.
And as the county office, we don't have control over that.
No, I know, you don't have. I know. But that's why those teachers are, they're being smart. They're trying to choose their best option.
So I had a quick question. You mentioned 3 years before you can do national board. I'm also at a county office. We have an intern program. So our interns do 3 years with the intern credential, 1 year with PITSA and clear. Do you count those 2 years as an intern as part of the 3 years?
You can answer that.
I can answer that. I did lots of work with National Board. For California, they were not accepting an intern credential, and that was challenged and the National Board reviewed a lot of CTA documentations and the language of the credential and changed course. And so as long as they are the teacher of record, because San Francisco is filled with interns, and most of those are in our high needs classrooms, right? And many of those are our teachers of color who we want to support and retain. And so the answer is yes, as long as they were the teacher of record. If there's any issue with that, they did put on file the language of the California credential. So the teacher still has to submit their credentials for review, but you can push back if it's not happening.
So if they start intern credential accounting?
Yes.
For 2 years. If they were 2 years.
And some of interns have been on intern credentials for 3 years, and so there you go. You got your
3 years.
Are they ever not teachers of record?
That seemed to be the issue because in other states, intern means something else. And they
Right.
were only using the word intern to base their decision on. So they examined the language of the credential to understand.
Like student teacher, they were not, right. Okay.
And one of the things, though, some people are hired in California initially, and they're not on an intern credential because they haven't met the requirements for the intern credential. So during that period of time, they are not the teacher of record. And so you have to be really individual
Right.
about what counts.
And National Board reviews the credential.
Yeah, we will check that piece of it. So I think we're going to wrap up, but I will say at the end of this PowerPoint are all of our contact information. Pretty pictures of everybody. My boys are way older than that now. And I'm way older too. God, it happens that way, I guess. But all of us have our information up here, our contact information. And I will say, I got the opportunity to work in Washington State, which only has 2 million students. And I know that sounds like just such small potatoes, right? And I got to run a state system. And I know it was actually great because I got to work with all 295 school districts. And we can run a state program. In California, what we're trying to figure out, and I'm trying to help them in any way I possibly can, is what pieces of the system are the different partners going to take, right? So how can Stanford be a support with you with candidate support? How can CTA support you in the Jumpstart, the pre-candidacy work? Each partner in this, and then, of course, all the districts getting together and figuring out, does your system look like my system? How can we support each other? Everybody plays a different role in that, but California does, and by God, we're going to get there, will have a statewide system for support for National Board, and you will all know where to go to get that support. What I can provide you from National Board is data and information on who are your MBCTs. I would say the very best thing you can do is to find an MBCT, sit down with them, and just talk to them about the process. I mean, that more than anything else, if you want a place to start by contacting us, but also start with the MBCTs in your district or in your region, because they will tell you exactly what they needed and didn't get and what they think future candidates might need. So thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of the day.